What happens when the time stops and you're stuck with a hot angel in crop tops? You ignore the hottie and train, like Goku did. Of course, martial arts he mastered, blacksmith absolutely blasted. Survival, he's a hero. Friends still zero. 1,000 years pass by the time. Suddenly resumes and you feel like a dad coming back home with the milk. But just before you enter the house to see your children, you notice a monster apocalypse. And instead of being a father, you put on the mask and decide to become a superhero. This damn bastard is our main character, and he's got a talent which every man in the world wants one day. When he arrived at school, there was no one, literally not a single damn ant. The whole street was deserted. Even when he returned home, it was empty. His dad had gone out to grab some milk, but then he noticed something seriously off. The clock looked like it had stopped, and not just the clock. Everything around him seemed frozen right then. With a radiant glow, a freaking angelic mommy with an all-inspiring presence appeared before Seo-jun, confirming that the entire planet had come to a halt except for him. This scared the hell out of him. Seo-jun asked who she was after a dramatic pause. He replied sarcastically, a house intruder. That pissed the angel off, pointing at her stunning wings, her flawless body, and her huge milkers. She asked again, "Isn't it obvious?" Seo-jun, still totally unfazed, casually responded, "She's clearly a damn cosplayer." Irritated as hell, but somehow holding it together, she said her name was Isla, a messenger of God. The reason she showed up was because Seo-jun had been left behind. Hearing the phrase "left behind" triggered some deep trauma. We got a flashback showing how, ever since childhood, people always seem to leave him behind in every situation, like he didn't even matter. Crushed with despair, he dropped to the floor, but one major question remained. Where the hell did the entire population of Earth go? Layla explained that the planet was on the verge of changing. Monsters and dungeons would soon appear. At the moment, humans weren't capable of defending themselves and needed to get a system and all that crap. That's why God relocated the entire population to another world for 10 whole years to train and level up. After hearing all this, Seo-jun, with lifeless eyes, asked, "What about him?" Layla explained that there had been a tiny mistake. Seo-jun's stealth ability was so insane that even God overlooked him and he got left behind. Hearing that, Seo-jun snapped. He then collapsed onto the ground, groaning and wondering how a god could make a mistake. "I have to go to another world to learn." Isla tries to calm him down, explaining that the merciful God felt bad for him and decided to give him a bonus. Seo-jun, still lying on the floor like a little kid, whines that he doesn't want a bonus. He just wants to go to the fantasy world. Isla smacks Jun on the back to snap him out of it. She reassures him, saying, "The Earthlings will return in 10 years. Until then, she'll take care of him, feeding him, and fulfilling every one of his fantasies." Everyone. Yeah, you're thinking it too. When Seo-jun asks what he's supposed to do during those 10 years, Isla smiles warmly and says she'll help him train his body to get ready for the disaster ahead. Seo-jun complains, saying he can't use mana or hurt monsters. In her confident tone, Isla responds that Seo-jun doesn't need mana. He just has to get physically stronger. Hearing that, Seo-jun's soul practically leaves his body. He stares blankly at the ceiling and mutters, "Is this angel stupid?" Once again, he drops to the floor crying, "I have to go to another world." And so begins Seo-jun's isolated life on Earth. For the next 1,000 years after that, the scene shifts, showing us a world left completely empty. Countries like the USA, Italy, and China are now entirely without people. Not a single soul is seen anywhere. Bullet trains sit frozen on their tracks, abandoned. We learn that 5 years have passed since humanity vanished from Earth. The scene shifts back to Seo-jun, who's running on a treadmill. Not just that, he's also training his legs and chest hard at the gym. After that, he lifts dumbbells and pushes through intense workouts. Seo-jun has carved out a dangerously ripped six-pack body ready to smash any monsters that dare show up on Earth while building his physique. Seo-jun thinks about how, while others in some fantasy world were learning mana-taming monsters and mastering magic, all he could do was grind non-stop. Seo-jun dedicated all his time to pure strength training, relentlessly lifting dumbbells. Meanwhile, the angel Isla quietly watches him from behind, curiously studying his determination. At one point, Isla asks, "Hasn't Seo-jun gotten tired of repeating the same routine for 5 years? How can he keep doing the exact same thing every single day?" Seo-jun, clearly frustrated, responds that he doesn't have a choice. There's nothing else left for him. Isla agrees and continues quietly observing his training. She notices that in just 5 years, Seo-jun has developed the physique of a world-class warrior. On top of that, his body has become insanely attractive and well-defined. His strength has skyrocketed, and his patience is on another level. Isla admires his focus, thinking to herself how rare it is for anyone to stay locked in on one thing for so long. Curious, Isla asks, Is Seojun really not just some ordinary guy? She already knew that Seojun had escaped the gaze of the gods thanks to his legendary stealth technique, but she hadn't fully grasped just how gifted he actually was when she brings up the stealth technique. Seojun flinches. He looks visibly shaken as old memories come rushing back, sensing his unease. Ila quickly shifts the topic later. Seojun and Ila get into a lighthearted scuffle. Ila smiles gently, and Seojun thinks about how she's the only person on Earth he can truly talk to. That thought makes a soft smile appear on his face, too. Ila starts visiting Seojun every week. She makes all his meals, and Seojun begins to notice how his table magically fills with food right at mealtime. Honestly, he thinks the meals taste even better than his mom's cooking. As soon as he finishes, the dishes vanish and come back clean. Ila had become Seojun's own personal maid. Then one day, Seojun tells her he's taken his body to its absolute limit, physically and humanly possible. Now it's time for him to start learning martial arts. Ila points out that there's no one left on Earth who can actually teach him. As Seojun admits, he has no idea how the internet is still working, but says he plans to learn martial arts from YouTube. The scene shifts, showing Seojun gripping a long stick, practicing spearmanship with fierce dedication for hours on end. From behind, Ila tells him to concentrate on his basic movements. She reminds him that with 5 full years to train, there's no need to push his body that hard. But Seojun continues to go all out, pushing his limits with unwavering effort. Ila looks on with a gentle smile. For years go by and Seojun completely masters the spear. One day, Ila gets an idea. With excitement, she suggests that sparring with her could help him progress even faster. By now, Ila and Seojun have built a strong bond, and he starts calling her Nona. However, Seojun suddenly pauses and tells her not to assume that just because she's a woman or an angel, he won't hit her. Seojun firmly believes in total gender equality. He punches her, declaring that she's about to feel the full force of his 9 years of solitude just as he's about to land another blow. Ila, True Sigma energy, casually raises her hand and sends him flying. The scene cuts to Seojun's face, completely wrecked from the fight. He's bruised and broken. Ila then mocks him, saying that from this point on, she'll be his trainer. Even though Seojun didn't want to train with her, he had no choice. And so their grueling training sessions began, and 10 years went by. Ila had dressed Seojun in a suit and boots, confidently declaring that as soon as a low-level monster appeared on Earth, Seojun would easily defeat them. She stressed that since she personally trained him, Seojun would have no trouble overcoming any threat. However, after hearing this, Seojun felt irritated and joked that it would be more accurate to say Ila beat him up rather than trained him. Hearing this, Ila gave a gentle smile, looking at Seojun's face, as if it might be the last time. She quietly said that 10 years had flown by faster than she realized. Ila assured him that when the apocalypse arrived, she was certain Seojun would survive. Seojun shook her hand and said he hoped to meet her again someday. Finally stepping outside his house, Seojun thought about how long it had been since he'd last seen other people. A wave of nervousness washed over him. Meanwhile, Ila watched from above, reflecting on how spending 10 years with Seojun had created a strong bond between them. As Ila prepared to leave, Seojun felt a small spark of happiness at the idea of finally seeing other people. However, 10 to 15 minutes passed, and not a single soul came to greet him. The silence was overwhelming. Seojun realized something was wrong. Anger welled up inside him. He demanded Ila explain why no one had shown up yet. Ila, trying to look innocent, hesitantly admitted there seemed to have been a slight mistake. She said she had just spoken with God, who told her there was a glitch. Upon hearing this, Seojun's anger exploded. He collapsed to the floor, shaking his hands like a child overwhelmed by the news. Ila explained that the glitch had caused a disruption in the timeline. Although 10 years had passed on Earth, it might not have been 10 years for the other humans. Ila admitted that even she didn't know how long Seojun would have to stay. Hearing this, Seojun started crying. He lamented that he had endured so much because he believed he only needed to wait 10 years. Now he didn't even know if it would be 20 or even 50 years. Frustrated, Seojun declared that even if he had to wait 10,000 years, he would stay and wait until the end. Years turned into decades. 10, 20, 50, even 70 years passed, and still no humans returned to Earth. The scene shifted to show Seojun living on a mountain, practicing martial arts. With a single punch, he shattered a huge boulder. His eyes were cold and emotionless. Ila watched him from a distance, commenting that Seojun had become far stronger than any ordinary human. Yet his face showed no expression. Over 60 or 70 years had gone by, and Seojun had stopped counting time altogether. Concerned, Ila asked him what was wrong. Seojun replied that after so many years, he no longer even remembered his mother's face. Damn, hearing this, Ila felt sad and apologized. She tried to comfort him, but before she could finish, Seojun slammed down his martial arts boulder and declared he was bored of martial arts. Without saying another word, he started walking away. Isla panicked, fearing Seojun might be thinking about ending his own life. She tried to stop him, saying that at any moment people from the other Earth could show up. Her anxiety grew as she wondered if Seojun was so depressed he might actually do it. But Seojun reassured her, saying he was sure people would eventually come back to Earth. Hearing this, Isla realized he hadn't completely fallen into despair. Relieved, she happily followed him. The scene shifted to a library where Seojun was absorbed in books one after another. He devoured texts on general knowledge, history, geography, physics, chemistry, arts, and fantasy. There wasn't a single book Seojun didn't read. After finishing the library, Seojun began traveling the world with Isla together. They visited famous landmarks, taking pictures along the way. These moments brought Seojun joy, creating treasured memories from their adventures. Decades passed. After 40 to 50 years, Seojun had read every book. On Earth, Isla was deeply impressed by his commitment. With a soft expression, she rested her hand on her cheek and asked Seojun what he planned to do now that he had absorbed it all. Seojun laughed and said there was still a lot to do. Before the apocalypse, hearing this, Isla felt both relief and sadness. Even after hundreds of years, Seojun refused to give up with tears in her eyes. Isla clasped her hands and prayed to God. She begged him to send others back to Earth. Before Seojun slipped into total despair and thought about suicide. Damn, after all these years, Seojun still hadn't smashed that angel. See, it was like his little PP wasn't even peeing anymore. The scene then shifts, showing Jun arriving in a thick jungle there. A huge fat pig blocks his path, which Seojun quickly dispatches with a single precise spear strike. After that, Seojun shares his journey, explaining that after reading every book on Earth, he started learning butchering and blacksmithing. Equipped with various tools, Jun dove into the art of butchering, starting with the pig he just killed. Just like that, many more years passed, and Isla revealed that 264 years had gone by since humans left Earth, leaving Seojun utterly alone. Even for an angel like Isla, the loneliness was unbearable. She admitted that if she were alone, she might have lost her mind. It amazed her that Seojun, a human whose typical lifespan is less than a century, had survived nearly 300 years. While Sayoko Ashino, Jun's body stayed ageless. His mind showed cracks, his mental state aging rapidly. The scene shifted to Seojun, wearing a psychotic grin, his mouth smeared with blood, clearly enjoying the act of butchering. For the next 20 to 30 years, he practiced relentlessly, trying to butcher every animal on Earth. Finally, he faced a massive sperm whale, determined to butcher it. But Isla firmly said no. She warned that killing the whale would disrupt Earth's balance. Seojun argued it only had to be done once. And despite Ila's protest, he went ahead with it. Once Seojun mastered butchering, he moved on to blacksmithing. This new challenge brought him immense frustration, as every sword he forged kept breaking. It took him 5 long years to craft even a shabby sword. When the poorly made weapon was finally done, it couldn't even slice through a vegetable. Isla picked up the sword, her eyes sparkling with fascination, and teased Seojun, saying it couldn't even cut a radish. Seojun grew irritated by her remarks, but Isla continued admiring the sword, holding it with affectionate eyes, declaring it special. Since it was Seojun's first creation, she promised to keep it safe forever. Laughing softly, she flew away with the sword, leaving Seojun fuming with anger. In private, Isla hugged the sword, cherishing it deeply, and declared she would treasure it for the rest of her life. Meanwhile, Seojun progressed from daggers to spears, axes, and hammers, crafting every weapon imaginable. Decades passed, with Seojun tirelessly making weapons, even watching YouTube tutorials to improve. After 50 years, Seojun still wasn't satisfied with his work. He kept hammering away, dedicating centuries to perfecting his craft. Finally, after 100 years, Seojun forged a legendary sword, masterpiece fitting for his destiny. Isla was astonished, admitting it was the finest steel weapon she'd ever seen. Even in heaven, she marveled at how it surpassed the weapons made from mana stones, which would eventually arrive on Earth, along with the monsters smiling warmly. Isla praised Seojun, calling him extraordinary. The scene shifted again to Seojun resuming his martial arts training. After mastering butchering and blacksmithing, he devoted himself fully to honing his combat skills. Years blended together as Seojun threw himself into training, barely noticing time passing by. Isla watched him quietly, her expression growing increasingly worried. Thousands of years had gone by, and she feared Seojun might be reaching his limit. She dreaded the thought of humans never returning to Earth. The idea that Seojun had already experienced everything Earth had to offer weighed heavily on her. She knew that as long as Seojun found new challenges, he could keep himself busy. But what would happen when there was nothing left? Suddenly a thought sparked in Isla's mind. She considered giving Seojun something he had never experienced before, something that might rekindle his unbreakable spirit. Isla realized that over the centuries she'd spent with Seojun, he had remained a lonely single virgin. She blushed at the idea that an opposite-sex relationship might be the key to preventing Seojun's descent into despair. The thought sent a tingling sensation through her embarrassed she started hitting a nearby tree, muttering to herself about how ridiculous her thoughts were. I'm an angel, how could I think such vulgar thing, Ila whispered in shame. But her mind wouldn't rest. She convinced herself that her mission was to help Seo-jun. It was God's order after all. With the determination, Ila rationalized her feelings. This isn't my desire, it's my duty. If I have to entertain Seo-jun to keep him from falling into despair, then so be it. She blushed even deeper, mumbling incoherent words as she paced around. Meanwhile, Seo-jun looked up at Ila, puzzled by her strange mumbling and odd behavior. Finally, Seo-jun shouts, "What are you doing up there?" Startled, Ila nervously climbs down from the tree and moves toward him. As she steps closer, she finds herself just inches away from his face. Their eyes meet, and for a few 10 seconds they can feel each other's breath. Seo-jun breaks the silence with a straight face, saying, "Lila, you're standing way too close." Overcome with shyness, Ila wonders if Seo-jun has caught on to her intentions. She panics inside, but before she can say anything, Seo-jun points out that the sword she's holding is shaking violently. Ila glances down at the sword. Seo-jun's very first creation, the one she vowed to treasure forever. Suddenly, the sword shoots upward, flying at an insane speed. Ila gasps, immediately taking flight to chase after it. I can't lose this, she thinks. This sword isn't just a weapon, it's the symbol of everything Seo-jun has crafted during his long time on Earth. As Ila climbs higher and higher into the atmosphere, something strange starts to happen. The world around them begins to shift. A brilliant sparkle surrounds Seo-jun, and objects he made over the centuries start to vanish. The training dummy disintegrates, and even the sweater Seo-jun is wearing begins to fade away. Seo-jun looks around in disbelief, realizing Earth is returning to its original state. Ila still pursuing. The sword finally catches it at the edge of the Earth's atmosphere, clutching it tightly. She prays to God, "Please don't take this from me. This is all I have left of Seo-jun." But as she gazes down, she notices the transformation happening. Below, Earth is resetting itself. She understands with a heavy heart that maybe humanity is coming back too. Suddenly, Seo-jun starts to float upward, rising at an incredible speed in the opposite direction of Ila. Ila watches in horror, shouting his name, but she can't reach him. Tears well up in her eyes as she realizes this might be the end. This can't be how it ends, she screams in despair. Her voice quivers as she prays to God, "This is too much. You didn't even give me the chance to say goodbye." Holding the sword tightly, she watches Seo-jun disappear into the distance. Her heart aches as she reflects on the thousands of years she spent with him. For the first time, Ila truly acknowledges how much she has come to care for Seo-jun. In her final moments on Earth, she whispers softly to herself, "At least I have his sword." But as she fades into the air, she lets out a frustrated sigh and mutters, "In the end, we didn't even kiss." And just like that, Ila disappears. Meanwhile, Seo-jun drifts away, overwhelmed by a profound sadness. He regrets not giving Ila a proper farewell. Reflecting on the 1,000 years they spent together, he realizes she was the only reason he never completely fell into despair. Her presence gave his life purpose. Seo-jun silently vows to meet her again. Someday, he wonders if becoming a higher being like Ila would allow him to see her one last time in heaven. Both Seo-jun and Ila are left with heavy hearts, yearning for their paths to cross once more. And damn Barhama, how in God's name did Seo-jun survive 1,000 years without even masturbating? The scene shifts, showing the world slowly returning to normal. People who had vanished on the streets begin walking again. Students return to their schools as if no time has passed. The metro starts running once more. Everything seems exactly as it was before. Earth has regained its rhythm. Seo-jun finds himself standing exactly where he began his journey 1,000 years. Ego time feels like it has come full circle. As he opens his eyes, a system notification appears before him, displaying his status. The title Cosmic Loner is boldly shown along with his stats: strength, 72 health, 78 detox, 80. His active skill stealth was maxed out, a skill that could never be removed. On top of that, Seo-jun had received a special bonus. Every time he leveled up, his stats would increase by 5 points. A true gamester. As Seo-jun processed the information, he realized Earth had indeed reverted to its former state. Around him, people were talking excitedly about finally returning to Earth after 10 years. But Seo-jun knew the truth. For him, it wasn't 10 years, it was 1,000 yet. The returning humans looked anything but happy. Their stats and levels had been reset to level 1. Seo-jun was surprised to see that while his own level was also 1, his stats remained intact. This anomaly confused him further, but then he noticed something strange. Despite being surrounded by a crowd, no one acknowledged his presence. Examining his status window more carefully, Seo-jun discovered the reason his maximum stealth skill ensured he remained completely unnoticed even by gods. It was the reason he had always been invisible to others, even since childhood. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't deactivate the skill. Frustrated, he grabbed his head and screamed, "Am I truly destined to be alone? Alone forever." Sadness engulfed him. Seo Jun walked home, emotions swirling inside him. There was bittersweet joy at seeing humans again, but a deep doubt lingered. Could he ever truly connect with them? Arriving at his house, Seo Jun hesitated. For the first time in 1,000 years, he anticipated seeing his mother, but nervousness nodded at him. Seo Jun had forgotten his mother's face the moment he stepped inside. A familiar voice called his name, soft, trembling, and filled with disbelief. It was his mother. For the first time in a millennium, Seo Jun saw her again. He overwhelmed with emotion. She rushed forward and wrapped him in a tight embrace. A flood of memories surged back, and tears welled in. His eyes, their reunion was quiet but profound. His mother gently cupping his cheeks as they shared a warm, heartfelt hug. The smells of dinner simmering in the kitchen, the sizzling from the frying pan, and the soft rustle of his father reading the newspaper at the dining table all felt comfortingly familiar. Like a dream, remembered, yet something was slightly off. His father, scanning the paper, muttered about the absence of any news from Heisen country. Curious, Seo Jun's mother asked if he had been there during their time in the fantasy world. She mentioned her own homeland, Yamen, with a hint of nostalgia. Seo Jun shifted uneasily as the conversation drifted into their shared experiences in that strange realm. His father described Heisen as a perfect place, except for one problem. No rice. He spoke of struggling to control mana, calling it an impossible skill to master. His mother nodded in agreement, confessing that she too had never figured out how to manipulate mana. Then her gaze fixed on Seo Jun. "Which country were you in?" she asked softly. Panic bubbled up inside Jun. Sweat poured from his forehead, his nose tingling as if it might betray him. The 1,000 years alone with Isla the Parvy Angel pressed heavily on his mind. He swallowed hard. Now wasn't the time to reveal the truth, Seo Jun stammered, struggling to find the right words. "I was in a place so remote, even I don't know its name," he said, voice barely above a whisper. His heart pounded as he dodged further questions, his mind drifting back to the 1,000 years spent with Layla. The loneliness, the training, the memories he couldn't share. His father nodded. Knowingly, that mana thing was impossible to master. "I couldn't manage it myself," his mother added, her voice tinged with weariness. "For me, mana wasn't as hard, but there was one big problem in that other world. Babies, pregnant women, even elderly men. They were all forced to work hard for 10 years. Maybe it would have been better if only the younger ones had been sent." Seo Jun listened quietly, then tried to explain. If some people had been left behind on Earth, the equilibrium would have been broken. They would have ended up isolated. But before he could finish, he abruptly stopped. The truth was too much. He couldn't risk revealing what really happened. His mother's eyes narrowed with the concern. "What do you mean 1,000 years in this equilibrium balance?" "Seo Jun, you're scaring me." He forced a weak smile and brushed it off. "I haven't been sleeping well since arriving in the other world. Maybe that's why I'm talking." "Nonsense," his mother brightened, excitement returning to her voice. "I heard some people are making huge money, mastering mana and hunting monsters. They say monster corpses are incredibly valuable." His father agreed with Earth. "Changing so fast, people who can control mana are the real assets now. The old systems will be replaced. Only those with mana will survive and thrive in this new world." Seo Jun's gaze drifted out the window. Thoughts tangled with the weight of his secret in the strange new world he'd returned to, where he was both familiar and utterly invisible. Seo Jun felt a deep awkwardness creeping in as his parents excitedly talked about mana powers and hunting monsters. Enthusiasm felt like a world apart from the secret he carried inside. After a heavy pause, Seo Jun finally decided to share a serious truth. In a solemn tone, he admitted, I can't use mana." His parents fell silent, their faces shifting to serious expressions for a moment. The room was filled with a tense quiet. Then unexpectedly, Seo Jun's mother burst into laughter. With a warm, reassuring smile, she said gently, Jun, it's really not a big deal. Neither your father nor I can use mana, so it's only natural you didn't inherit it. You don't have to worry. Just focus on your studies and everything. We'll be fine." His father chuckled, joining in the lighthearted mood. "I always suspected this would be the case. Looks like our bad genes made their way to you." The three of them shared a genuine laugh, the tension breaking as they enjoyed a rare moment of lightness together. Seo Jun's mother then began recounting her own experiences in the other world, sharing stories that brought smiles and even laughter. Seo Jun felt a warmth in his chest. He was truly happy to be reunited with his family after so long. Latish, after the day's conversations faded, Seo Jun went up to his room only to be shocked. Every item he had painstakingly crafted over the centuries had vanished, except for one, his legendary blacksmith weapon, the spear he'd forged after hundreds of years of trial and error, remained untouched. Confused, Seo-jun wondered why it alone had survived the world's reset. He had expected everything to disappear. Suspecting that Layla might have intervened in some way, he gripped the spear and began practicing his martial arts and spearmanship, testing its power against beginner-level monsters in the nearby training ground. As he examined the spear stats, his eyes widened in disbelief. The weapon was of a unique grade, boasting an attack power of 800 and durability of 500. Seo-jun was stunned. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a relic of his long journey, a testament to his relentless perseverance. It was nothing short of a miracle that such a weapon had been forged by a human. Crafted purely from steel without any aid of mana, the spear's strength and steadiness gave it an almost mythical quality, as if it had been carved from the bone of a dragon itself. Yet, as Seo-jun sat at his desk, he couldn't help but wonder if the stats displayed on his screen truly captured the weapon's full potential. Driven by curiosity, he turned to the internet and searched for information about weapons crafted by those who had returned from the other world. What he found painted a stark picture. Leveling up was everything in this transformed world. An average person could only fight monsters up to 5 levels above their own, the first monsters to appear weak. Slimes were easily dispatched with ordinary weapons. Seo-jun noted that to qualify as a lower-ranked soldier, one needed to reach level 7 basic classes such as swordsman or archer. Unlocked at level 10. At level 51, became strong enough for second-class advancement. Level 100 marked the gateway to third-class advancement, elevating someone to the status of a national treasure. Beyond that, the trials of fourth-class advancement were so brutal that no one had ever been documented to achieve it. Legendary monsters, dragons, behemoths, and others were said to exist at these highest tiers. As Seo-jun absorbed this, he pondered whether the school system would even function in this new era. Life appeared normal on the surface, but deep inside he sensed that monumental changes were looming. A wave of sadness washed over him as he thought about Ayla. Her voice, her presence, her unwavering companionship over the centuries. Just as the thought settled, a familiar voice echoed teasingly in his mind. Ayla would be glad to hear you miss her, Seo. Jun smiled softly, the ache in his chest momentarily eased. Startled, Seo-jun instantly went on high alert, scanning his surroundings as he demanded to know who had spoken. To his surprise, a small angelic figure appeared before him. Introducing herself as Martha, she explained that she was sent from heaven to help Seo-jun get used to mana. Seo-jun, clearly irritated, yelled at the unexpected visitor. His eyes widened in disbelief as he took in her tiny stature. Despite her size, Martha radiated an air of divine authority and insisted she wasn't an intruder, but an angel assigned to assist him. Seo-jun was left speechless. Another uninvited presence had entered his life. And seriously, how the heck was this angel roughly the same size as his, you know? Martha then added that managing mana is tough, which is why God sent her to guide Jun. With a scowl, Seo-jun told Martha he didn't need her help and that she could leave. But Martha replied that someone had desperately pleaded with God to send help for Seo-jun, so she was dispatched to aid the last person left on Earth and help him. Understand, Amana. Seo-jun immediately guessed it was Ayla who had begged for this. He asked why Ayla hadn't come herself. Martha explained that the higher-ups worried about an angel and human growing too close, so they sent her. Instead, she then inspected Seo-jun, closely scanning his stats, and was surprised to find discrepancies compared to Ayla's reports. Growing increasingly annoyed, Martha remarked that Seo-jun could probably defeat a low-level monster with his bare fist alone. She recalls Ayla weeping like a lost puppy, lamenting that Seo-jun had been a helpless loner for 1,000 years and was the only one unable to wield mana. Ayla even pleaded with God for help, insisting Seo-jun desperately needed support, or he wouldn't survive. Urdu muses to herself, how love can truly change a person. Wasn't Ayla supposed to be an innocent angel, not a sly fox? Urda then tells Seo-jun that she'll assist him in mastering mana. She explains that her constant presence will help him get accustomed to it. Since Jun already spent a millennium with Ayla, he should be able to harness mana. By the next year, Seo-jun, annoyed, asks if Urda is planning to stay with him. It confirms calmly that she'll be by his side. 247. She reassures him she's cast a spell, so no one else will see her. But Seo-jun isn't worried about others noticing. He's horrified that will be around even during his private moments in the bathroom. His mind instantly flashed to the 7 terabytes of Johnny Boy and his plumber story collection that he wouldn't be able to enjoy. Seo-jun's frustration boiled over. Damn, the dude's got 7 tab of porn for the whole country. Suddenly, with a disgusted look, said she didn't care what a lowly being like Jun did. Seo-jun wondered if she could read his mind. Keeping her disgusted expression, told Jun she genuinely didn't care if he broke dance, Zumba's organ plays DDR with his little pee-pee. She added casually. Seo-jun felt incredibly shy, thinking, well, actually, I do care. He started complaining again, insisting he didn't want her tagging along, but smirking reminded him that as a higher being, she couldn't care less what a lowly human did for fun. This only made Seojun more embarrassed, especially as he caught her sly smile finally. Seojun shouted out that he missed Ila, but bluntly told him to give up the next day. Seojun headed to school, annoyed as a sat perched on his head, swinging her legs carelessly. Her carefree behavior drove him crazy. As he walked, Seojun noticed patrolling soldiers nearby. He realized life would never be normal again. School wasn't about learning anymore. It had turned into a center for preparing students to handle level 1 slimes that were about to invade Earth. Sitting through class, Seojun remained invisible to everyone, smugly pointed out that his stealth skill outmatched anyone else's by far. Using this advantage, Seojun decided to eavesdrop to gather information. He overheard talk of an empress, famous in another world, and mentions of dungeons. Curious, Seojun asked about them. She explained that dungeons were traps set by God first. God places food inside to lure and trap monsters, then places rewards to tempt humans to enter. Humans kill the monsters to claim the rewards, while the dungeon system automatically clears out the creatures inside. They explains that humans can freely enter and exit the dungeons, making them perfect training grounds. Seojun suggests keeping the monsters trapped forever, but Earth counters. The dungeons don't last forever. Over time they vanish, plus there are monsters so powerful they can break through dungeon barriers and even create their own, making them far more dangerous. She encourages Seojun to hunt monsters to build his mana. While the current monsters are weak, they will grow stronger with time. Seojun, however, worries about his inability to fight effectively without mana. Just then, the Fatso teacher enters and starts a dull lecture on handling slimes. Though the teacher's voice is monotone, the urgency of the topic hangs heavy in the air. Points out Seojun's superior physique, claiming he could easily take down monsters up to level 25. His stats don't resemble those of a typical level 1. Human suddenly freezes mid-sentence. Her face shifting to alarm, she senses something and tells Seojun it's time to put his skills to the test before he can react. Giant insects appear outside their looming figures, threatening to destroy the school. Panic spreads as students and teachers see the monstrous creatures and injured people outside. The chaos escalates when a massive 10-foot grasshopper appears, a far cry from the weak slimes they expected. Screams fill the halls as students scatter in all directions as predicted. Everyone abandons. Seojun even is taken aback, despite having witnessed scenes like this before, but Seojun's 1,000 years of survival instinct kick in. Spotting his hated old school desk, he thinks fast. He mutters to himself that the grasshopper looks weaker than a sperm whale, so his makeshift weapon should work. Watches closely, curious about his next move. Seojun breaks off a chair leg, swinging it around, then carefully sharpens it. With laser focus, impressed by his skillful craftsmanship, which was far from what Ila had reported. Notes his incredible core strength in mere seconds. Seojun transforms the chair leg into a sharp, durable spear. With just one powerful swing, a shockwave rippled through the air from Seojun's spear, leaving Earth visibly stunned. Seojun felt a surge of satisfaction with his newly forged weapon, even admitted it was a decent weapon, and praised his craftsmanship, causing Seojun to blush faintly at the unexpected compliment. Meanwhile, annoyance flared up again as she recalled how Ila had begged her for help, painting Seojun as a helpless, pathetic soul who couldn't even wipe his own ass. But reality was proving Ila wrong. As she watched Seojun sharpening his makeshift spear with his bare hands, she couldn't help but admire his body of arm. Testament to extreme, relentless training. Was genuinely impressed. Seojun, confident with his spear, prepared 3 more and decided to mask his identity. Outside, the monstrous insects continued their rampage, tearing through everything. Suddenly, a masked Seojun appeared, dispatching a monster with a single brutal strike. He landed on the insect, and it died instantly. Even Seojun was taken aback by how easily it fell. The system flashed a notification: level up. Stat points gained. A rush of power surged through him, igniting the thrill of leveling up for the very first time. More insects swarmed in, but Seojun cut through them effortlessly. Flying monsters launched attacks, but one precise spear throw sent them crashing down. Caught up in the frenzy, Seojun unleashed a relentless slaughter, tearing through monster after monster like a wild beast unleashed. One mosquito attempted to pierce Seojun with its huge-ass stinger, but it couldn't even penetrate his skin. Instead, the insect stinger bent her. Watching this unfold was shocked and realized that Seojun's body had surpassed the limits of a human. Seojun soon found himself surrounded by insects. However, he wiped them out as easily as a kid drinking his mommy's milkers. The system continued to notify Seojun of his progress, revealing that he had killed level 6 and level 9 monsters, gaining huge experience and leveling up. Just as Seojun started to catch his breath, a bolt of lightning struck, surprising him. The lightning annihilated the remaining monsters in an instant. From the shadows a masked woman appeared. But something about her mask was off. What the hell was wrong with that mask? Cyojin was amazed seeing a mage in reality for the first time, but quickly reminded him that there were still monsters left. The masked woman effortlessly disintegrated the insects with her lightning while Cyojin continued slashing them with precision, leaving all the students in awe. Just then the army arrived to take control of the situation. But they were shocked to see that the monsters were already dead. They noticed a weird masked boy with his whole hand inside the insect's ass doing God knows what. Well, Cyojin was actually dismembering the monsters from monostones. As Cyojin continued to butcher the monsters, the system notified him that his butchering level had reached maximum. Everyone watched in shocked silence as Cyojin worked with the precision of an expert. Finally, Cyojin spotted a glowing crystal, and they explained it was a mana stone. But Cyojin was so caught up in the slaughter that he didn't notice people filming him and cheering wildly. The sudden attention startled him. This was the first time he'd ever been in the spotlight. Like this calmly reassured Cyojin not to worry, reminding him that his mask would keep his identity hidden. Just then the Empress appeared wearing her bizarre mask, running her fingers through her hair. She asked Cyojin in a calm yet commanding tone if he'd help her with the slaughtering. Cyojin asked how much he'd earned from the butchering, and she replied with a smooth 40% without hesitation. Cyojin dove back into the carnage. Meanwhile, the crowd's focus shifted to the Empress, and many started drooling over her. Several seemed willing to endure her lightning bolt just to get close, infuriating the girlfriends of these admirers. The crowd praised the Empress's dangerous lightning bolt, but soon their attention flipped back to Cyojin. They tried to guess which weapon he was using but couldn't agree. Some swore he was firing a beam from his hand. Others insisted it was a lightsaber or an axe. The truth was that Cyojin's stealth skill was so flawless, no one could actually see what he wielded. Thinking about this made Cyojin feel lonely again, and tears welled up. However, encouraged him, saying it was a blessing that no one could notice him, even joking that he could use his stealth for some mischievous fun. Ignoring her teasing, Cyojin focused on butchering monsters, gathering mana stones, and handing them over to the Empress. Just as Cyojin gets ready to leave, several military men block his path, saying they need to interrogate him before they can make a move. A lightning bolt suddenly strikes behind them, mistaking it for Cyojin's doing. They prepare to fight back. But the Empress steps forward, her voice sharp, commanding as she orders Cyojin to leave immediately. The crowd erupts again in praise for the Empress taking advantage of the distraction. Cyojin quietly gathers his loot and slips away. Standing there, Cyojin realizes that, despite being right in front of everyone, no one can see him frustrated. He yells that he's standing there, but the crowd just assumes he vanished like lightning. The loneliness weighs on Cyojin, even though as an introvert he should have appreciated the invisibility. It comforts him, telling him not to overthink things. Later, the scene shifts to Cyojin, sitting in a park surrounded by all his loot. Asks what he plans to do with the monster parts. Cyojin proudly reveals he wants to craft a full set of monster armor. Mocks him, suggesting he find a trusted blacksmith, but Cyojin smirks, confidently insisting no one can match his skills. Anoida recalls how Ayla once described Cyojin as pathetic, saying he couldn't even cook. Cyojin blushes at the mention of Ayla, and Shilly asks if misses her too. She admits she does, but only so she can punch Ayla for lying, doubting Cyojin's knowledge. Asks if he knows anything about mana crafting. Cyojin sheepishly admits he doesn't, prompting her to declare that she will teach him everything. Cyojin gets fired up, but in his excitement, he accidentally brushes it in a very sensitive spot. A jolt runs through her, and she instantly feels both shocked and irritated. She snaps at Cyojin, warning him that she won't teach him until he learns some manners. Despite her anger, a hint of shyness surfaces as she starts explaining the basics of mana crafting. She tells Cyojin that it involves using mana crystals, kind of like magical stones, to craft artifacts that grant special powers to weapons and armor. Jun's excitement sources again, but still flustered, grumbles that she needs to have a serious word with Ayla, vowing to tell her to keep better control over her man. Then explains how Cyojin should use the monster materials in conjunction with the mana stones from the same creature. She says he needs to grind the mana stone into a powder and sprinkle it like salt onto the equipment to create powerful enchanted gear. She warns the process won't be easy, but Cyojin confidently replies, "I won't know until I try." Goes on to say that gear can be infused with various abilities and effects without hesitation. Cyojin jumps right into crafting quickly, making arm and knee guards with surprising skill. Leaving the speechless, he wastes no time and begins the enchanting phase, grinding the mana stone to dust and dusting it carefully over the gear. Closing his eyes, Cyojin visualizes exactly how he wants his armor to look. Watches in awe, starting to believe Jun might actually pull this off on his very first attempt. However, quickly notices a problem. Seojun's mana stone supply isn't enough to complete. The enchantment seeing this, she steps in and channels her own mana to help him out with a whoosh of energy. The enchantment process finishes successfully. Seojun's gear is complete, and it can't help but be impressed. She starts to wonder if Seojun's talent might actually surpass her expectations. As soon as Seojun puts on his enchanted armor, a powerful aura radiates from his body. The system notifies him that his mana crafting skill has just leveled up. To level 2, the Watch is initially doubtful if the enchantment truly worked, but her uncertainty quickly fades when Seojun confidently slices a thick iron rod clean in half with a flick of his hand. It's then revealed that Seojun has cleverly integrated the grasshopper scythe into his armor as a weapon. A is stunned by his creativity, exclaiming that incorporating a monster's attack ability into armor is far from normal. But before she can say more, Seojun suddenly bolts away, realizing his attack accidentally destroyed the park. The scene cuts to news reports where Seojun, now dubbed Hussein Bolt, appears in a headline next to a photo of the Empress. The military issues a notice urging people to report any sightings of them. Meanwhile, as Seojun gears up for another monster hunt, his mother voices concern, sensing something dangerous lurking outside. Both Erda and Seojun realize that his mother has an uncanny ability to sense his presence from afar. Seojun, irritated by her intense surveillance, laments that he can't even chill in his own room without her knowing what's going on. Shrugs, suggesting it's probably a mother's innate skill, a natural and valuable survival instinct. Seojun pictures himself lost in a bustling crowd only for his mother to instantly pinpoint his location. The then asks if Seojun is thinking about joining the government special unit, but Seojun firmly insists he prefers to work solo. Still, he admits he's curious to meet the Empress's face. Twists into a teasing grimace as she jokes whether Seojun is interested in the Empress romantically. Seojun quickly denies it, annoyed, and says he's just not interested in women right now. Ever the troublemaker smirks and playfully asks, "So could you be gay?" Seojun's face flushes red as he vehemently denies, shouting, "I'm not gay, I'm straight." Thanks to his godlike stealth skill, no one notices his outburst, leaving him relieved but thoroughly embarrassed. Eventually, Seojun admits the real reason he's not interested in other women. There's only one Ila. Pierre sarcastically agrees, pointing out that after spending 1,000 years with a super angel beauty like Ila, it's no wonder Seojun wouldn't want to look at anyone else. He'd go gay for any other woman, she jokes, but she quickly shifts tone, acknowledging Seojun's unique talent. His ability to infuse monster traits into armor without mana is legendary, even if Seojun himself doesn't fully realize how special he really is. Suddenly, Era senses a pack of monsters nearby, 70 wolves and wild dogs all around. Level 30 Seojun is stunned and asks why such high-level monsters would appear just on the second day of the apocalypse. Era explains that the apocalypse should have started with slimes on day 1, but the sudden emergence of level 10 monsters had already made her uneasy. When Seojun asks why Aswam hadn't voiced her concerns earlier, she shoots him a disgusted look and dismissively replies that she didn't want to burden a lowly being with her worries, annoyed by her arrogance. Seojun mentally compares to A comes off like an arrogant rich girl, quick to draw harsh lines between social classes, while Ila, though sometimes naive, had the gentle kindness of an older sister. Lost in thoughts of Ila, Seojun allows himself a brief, bittersweet smile. The moment breaks as tone sharpens her expression. Serious, she tells Seojun Earth is far from normal and insists she needs his help immediately. The weight of her words unsettles Seojun deeply. Sensing his growing anxiety, the perches on Seojun's head and commands him to start running while she explains everything on the move. As Seojun takes off, begins. God teleported all humans to another world because of the impending apocalypse and trained them to use mana. She pauses before adding that God left the animals on Earth untouched, believing they could survive for 10 years without intervention. Her voice darkens, but due to an unknown anomaly, time on Earth became severely distorted. What should have been 10 years in the other world turned into 1,000 years on Earth. Earth's concern deepens as she explains that during those 1,000 years, monsters on Earth evolved into far more dangerous forms, and with the introduction of mana, they grew even stronger. Seojun is stunned, his mind spinning, as he processes the reality that he had spent 1,000 years completely alone. His thoughts drift to Ila, and he remembers her sweet scent and warm presence, a painful reminder of everything he's lost. Without Ila, Seojun realizes he wouldn't have made it through. Lost in these heavy thoughts, his pace slows, but grabs a handful of his hair and yells, "Focus!" Seojun snap out of it. Her voice turns serious as she continues, in short, the monsters on Earth now are far more powerful than any in the other world. As Seojun's eyes sharpen as he spots bloodthirsty wolves and dogs, each 10 times their usual size, tearing into humans with dripping bloody jaws, pulling on his mask. Seojun charges headlong into the chaos. The wolves leap at him, but he easily dodges their attacks and swiftly draws his spear, or watches with a mix of admiration and doubt, wondering if Seo-jun can really handle the threat. Without hesitation, Seo-jun springs into the air and lands with a deadly strike, instantly killing 15 to 20 of the massive wolves. The system chimes in, notifying him of a 12,000 experience point gain and marking him as the first to slay a level 35 brown diamond wolf on Earth. His level jumps to 9, and his stats surge dramatically. The shocked and impressed exclaims, "You're amazing." But her tone quickly shifts to teasing as she smirks and says, "So Jun, are you a pervert?" This sparks a playful, lighthearted fight between them. But Seo-jun quickly refocuses on the battle at hand. With a swift flick of his spear, he takes down more oversized dogs. Nearby, a group of low-level hunters try their hand with level 5 fireball magic, but their attacks barely scratch. The monster Seo-jun steps in effortlessly, killing another wolf and saving one of the hunters, earning their admiration. The system notifies Seo-jun, once again fueling his growing confidence. Seo-jun hits level 10, unlocking the ability to advance his class. The crowd starts whispering about the masked warrior, speculating that he must be Sun Gamebolt, the mysterious figure who vanishes in a flash. Seo-jun, though secretly pleased, finds the nickname lame and irritating, congratulates him, but he waves it off, laser-focused on the fight ahead as he tears through the wolves one by one. His confidence swells despite his gruff words. His slight blush reveals his true happiness. Something picks up on immediately. Suddenly, the wolf leader bursts onto the scene holding a terrified human hostage. The crowd's excitement shifts to tension and fear. Erda warns Seo-jun that this will be a tough battle, but Seo-jun just smirks, gripping his spear tightly. He stands ready, muscles coiled for action behind him. The crowd pulls out their phones, recording every move and cheering loudly. Meanwhile, Arthur watches quietly, contemplating that, depending on Seo-jun's choices, he could become either a hero or a villain. But Seo-jun couldn't care less about titles like that. Without hesitation, he dashes forward, his movements sharp and precise. With a single lethal strike, he kills the wolf chief, throwing his spear to take out a second wolf and rescue the hostage. Standing tall amid the chaos, Seo-jun calmly reflects. If someone's in danger and he has the power to save them, then he will. But he's clear about one thing. He's no hero. Seo-jun thinks of himself as just a normal guy. Erda watches this. With a mix of secondhand embarrassment and a bit of amusement, Seo-jun notices her reaction and quietly admits to himself that after all this time, he finally managed to say something that sounded cool. Well, at least to him, even if it totally missed the mark. With a butt over, more wolves come rushing at him. But Seo-jun stays calm. His spear may be gone for the moment, but he knows that's not his only weapon. Actually, 1,000 years of intense training have prepared him for this. With a confident grin, he throws a powerful punch that kills a wolf instantly. Every move Seo-jun makes reflects the brutal, unyielding training he endured under the Queen of Combat. His mastery over the Xer wolves is undeniable. Meanwhile, Arthur observes quietly, his eyes serious and focused. Arthur notes that Seo-jun isn't throwing himself recklessly into danger or making heroic sacrifices. Instead, Seo-jun acts with sharp, calculated precision, always picking the fastest, most effective way to handle the situation. Arthur realizes that while Ayla helped raise this incredible force of nature, the combat skills Seo-jun now displays are honed. From his own relentless grind in the crowd, a fan sporting a cap can't contain his awe. He tells everyone nearby that Seo-jun's entire body is a weapon, every punch, kick, and move perfectly calculated and deadly effective. One by one, those wolves dropped to the ground under Seo-jun's precise strikes. Just as the crowd burst into cheers, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. A military woman appeared from the shadows, pressing a gun firmly against Seo-jun's neck, calling out his name with authority. Sun caught his attention. Seo-jun slowly turned, locking sharp eyes onto her and noting the entire military squad encircling him. The crowd, once joyful, now turned angry. They shouted demands at the soldiers, questioning why they were aiming a gun at the man who had slain all the monsters and saved them. The crowd's roar echoed with confusion and outrage. Seo-jun remained calm but alert, his presence commanding the focus of both the military and onlookers as tension thickened. Standing composed amid the chaos, spear in hand, he surveyed the scene littered with fallen wolves. The military woman's eyes widened in disbelief as she realized Seo-jun had taken down all the wolves alone. She was baffled, as none of the soldiers had witnessed how he pulled it off. Without hesitation, Seo-jun settled down beside the massive wolf chief and began butchering it with careful, deliberate movements. The military woman approached him, her tone firm yet apologetic, explaining they hadn't meant to shoot, but had mistaken him for a monster. She apologized again and explained that the entire military had been searching for him, hoping to recruit him. But before she could finish, Seo-jun disappeared. The soldiers exchanged surprised looks, beginning to believe the rumors that Seo-jun was faster than Flash might be true. Moments later, the military woman glanced to her left and spotted Seo-jun fully focused on his butchering. She tried to persuade him to join the military, but Seo-jun declined immediately when asked if he held any grudge against them. He simply said he preferred working alone. The truth was, he found military life too restrictive and believed it would only limit his effectiveness to quietly. Agreed with Seo-jun's choice, but when Seo-jun sensed Earth reading his mind again, his irritation flared, muttering. Under his breath, Seo-jun told to keep out of his thoughts. The shrug, saying she couldn't care less about the musings of a lone wolf. Seo-jun reaffirmed that working with the government would only hold him back, standing firm on his decision to go solo as he continued butchering. The military woman vented her frustration to a comrade, feeling both embarrassed and humiliated. She admitted that no one had ever spoken to her so harshly and even considered quitting, but then her mood shifted, determined to recruit Seo-jun at any cost. A daring plan formed in her mind, willing to do whatever it took to secure his talents. Seo-jun, calm as ever, told the military plainly that if they wanted the wolves butchered, he'd do it, but only if he got 50% of all the loot, including mana stones. The military woman had no choice but to agree. As she observed Seo-jun's work, she couldn't help but notice his legendary skill. She recorded the entire butchering session in full HD, capturing every precise slash and strike. With a sly smirk, she sent the footage to her superior. After watching it, her superior was clearly impressed and ordered her to do whatever it took to recruit Seo-jun, even if that meant seducing him. Once Jun finished his task, he approached Han, holding 2 mana stones he had retrieved. Curious, he wondered aloud if consuming the stones would boost his mana. The strongly warned against it, cautioning that the dark aura from the monsters could corrupt him. Seo-jun, skeptical of Earth's warning, considered ignoring her advice, feeling a strong urge to test the stones for himself. Time passed, and Han continued paying Seo-jun, handsomely handing him 37 million. In a bold move, she loosened her uniform, her cheeks flushing as she seductively offered Seo-jun more than just money. She declared she was willing to do anything he wanted and even go out with him, confident in her beauty. Han recalled how people used to flock to her for attention, but Seo-jun didn't even blink. He ignored her completely, treating her with the same indifference a middle child might get in. A crowded family, embarrassed and confused, Han called after him. But Seo-jun didn't stop. Instead, he vanished as quickly as he had appeared. Han was left standing in stunned silence, amazed at his speed and presence, or rather his complete lack of it. She realized that no matter what she tried, Seo-jun remained utterly unfazed. She hadn't reached Layla's level of beauty, so there was no chance of sparking Seo-jun's interest or awakening his little baby, as Ernst teasingly called it. It was time for him to select his new class, standing before the system. Notifications Seo-jun surveyed the many options laid out: Lancer, Griller, Swordsman. There were plenty to choose from. He scanned the list for RPG style classes and noticed Assassin among them. Seo-jun considered picking Assassin, thinking it would boost his stealth skills further, but he actually wanted to suppress his stealth skill for the time being. There, explain that, since he hadn't yet gained mana control, he couldn't fully manage his stealth ability. Seo-jun thought aloud that choosing a class focused on increasing his mana might be the more interesting path, though, however, recommended the Lancer class, pointing out that both Lancer and Greller would improve his spear skills and raw physical strength. Seo-jun recalled how Layla had trained him like a Lancer, basing his training on his natural strength. Memories flooded back of those grueling sessions where he could barely stand after 5 minutes, even after 1,000 years of practice. After thinking it over for a while, Seo-jun decided he wanted a class that would boost both his mana and strength. Earth reminded him that he could always pick a subclass later, so the choice didn't have to be set in stone. Ultimately, Seo-jun settled on the Lancer class since he genuinely enjoyed wielding the spear. Just then, something unexpected happened. A new secret class appeared. Surprised, Seo-jun pointed it out to Earth. It was called Blood Lancer. There was visibly shocked by this revelation. As expression turned serious as she told Seo-jun that this was a modified, unique job, one that belonged only to him. Puzzled, Seo-jun asked what exactly a unique job meant. They explained that, unlike most classes which were common and available to other hunters, this unique class was exclusive to him alone. No one else in the world could wield it. Recognizing its significance, Seo-jun decided to select Blood Lancer. Moment he confirmed his choice, the system notified him, revealing that in stealth mode, his attack power would increase by 10%, further amplifying it as stealth skill. This hit Seo-jun hard, especially since in Korean Blood and Blur sound similar, meaning by picking Blood Lancer, he'd unintentionally upgraded the very skill he'd wanted to suppress. That was just as shocked. Left momentarily speechless, frustrated, Seo-jun shouted at Earth, voicing his annoyance with the class. Choice calmly reminded him that he was different from others, and that some confusion was bound to happen. Suddenly, Seo-jun felt an odd sensation coursing through his body. His physique began to evolve. His six-pack abs grew more defined, and his entire body felt noticeably stronger. Realized his power had nearly doubled. That explained this transformation was the effect of the new class. The system flashed his updated stats: strength 96, HP 98, dexterity 102, and mana 21 previously. His mana had been only 2, but it had now jumped to 21. Seojun begrudgingly accepted the changes only for Earth to drop another bombshell due to his unique class. Seojun would now require twice the experience points to level up. Normally, if Seojun were at level 50, the same amount of effort with this unique class would only bring him up to level 25. Earth smiled slightly, telling him that while an ordinary person might struggle under such conditions, Seojun was far from ordinary. Hearing this, Seojun's cheeks flushed slightly, the grin teasing that although he was a lower being, Seojun was definitely someone worth keeping an eye on. Suddenly, a thunderous roar echoed from outside, sending waves of terror through the crowd. Everyone froze in fear at the sight of a gigantic bear looming before them, an opponent far beyond their capability to defeat. Typically, the citizens would be around level 5, but the monsters appearing now had skyrocketed in strength, with this bear reaching level 50. Its deafening roar rattled the air. But despite their fear, the people grew excited and resolute, ready to face the monumental challenge. They armed themselves with spears and prepared to confront the massive beast. Seojun noticed the army firing frantically at the bear, but their bullets were useless. The bear, towering like a titan, smashed buildings and hurled debris at the soldiers. The highest-ranked soldier was barely level 10, dwarfed by the bear's overwhelming level 55. No weapon could slow the bear's rampage as it devastated the city, raising its colossal paw. The beast roared triumphantly, as if declaring itself the unchallenged king. Watching this destruction, Seojun donned his mask and remarked that the bear seemed to be having far too much fun from her vantage point. Added that the bear was just a big fish in a small pond. Seojun smirks confidently, declaring that he's the biggest fish in this pond, activating his stealth skill. He notices his head attack is boosted by 10% with a powerful leap. He aims his spear straight at the bear's head. The strike lands, precisely drawing blood from the beast's thick skull. The soldiers erupt into cheers, their hope reignited by Sun Gainbolt's bold attack. However, the bear barely reacts, brushing off the wound like a minor scratch. Realizing the danger, Seojun quickly shouts for everyone to flee, warning that he can't hold the bear off for much longer. The fierce battle between Seojun and the colossal beast resumes, while Earth, perched on his head, seems to enjoy the chaos as if she's on a thrilling roller coaster despite unleashing his full strength and skills. Seojun struggles to even make a noticeable dent in the bear's tough hide. In that tense moment, a sudden flashback hits Seojun. Memories of his training with Ila flood his mind with a serious but teasing tone. Ila had challenged him, promising that if he managed to scratch her, she'd let him rest in her lap. The thought excites Seojun, sparking a surge of determination. He lunges at Ila, aiming a punch, but she effortlessly counters and sends him crashing down, reminiscent of a Yamcha defeat. Yet, instead of scolding him, Ila gently cradles Seojun in her lap, stroking his head tenderly like a child. She warmly praises him, showing him a single strand of hair he'd managed to cut during training. "Good job, Seojun," she says with kindness, snapping back to the present. Seojun channels all his focus and power into a single decisive strike. With a powerful strike, Seojun drives his spear through the bear's skull. Blood erupts like a geyser, and with an earth-shaking crash, the massive beast collapses. Lifeless, the system flashes. Seojun gains 12,900 experience points and levels up to 23. His stats rise: +8 strength, +7 detox, +5 HP, and +5 mana. Alongside that, he earns 2 titles: level 54, Brown Big Bear First Slayer, and 1 strike 1 kill, granting him a 10% increase in critical hit chance. On top of that, he acquires a new skill, Critical Blow, a focus strike that doubles his attack damage. Watching the aftermath, the casually remarks that it took him 3 hits to kill just a bear. Seojun scowls, grumbling that maybe she could throw in a single compliment for once. Still, despite her jabs, he feels an eager anticipation to harvest the bear's leather for materials. Just as he begins to carve into the corpse, the bear starts to shrink rapidly. Seojun quickly realizes the creature had been using a gigantification skill all along to mask its true form. While he's mid-butcher, a sleek black car pulls up from it. Emerged the top young hunters in Korea, both Seojun, and let out a simultaneous sigh, leading them as saying, a prominent and rising talent among hunters who looks genuinely stunned at the scene before him. The brown-haired and white-haired hunters exchange snide remarks, saying they'd heard a monster from Tile 2 appeared, but didn't expect someone wearing a goofy mask to be the one who took it down. Solo Singh, however, doesn't speak. He just stares at Seojun with intensity. Seo Jun, flustered and caught off guard by the recognition, finds himself blushing. For the first time, it feels like someone truly saw him. But of course, the excitement was short-lived, as always ruined the moment by dryly pointing out that Sang wasn't actually looking at Seo Jun. He was eyeing his ridiculous mask. That jab landed hard. Seo Jun's brief happiness deflated like a popped balloon to make matters worse. Sang called him Sang Greenbolt. Perfect, just what Seo Jun needed. Another cringeworthy nickname to add to his growing collection. The brown-haired hunter radiating smug arrogance. Flat out refused to believe Jun had taken down the bear alone, the group started closing, in pelting him with questions like, "What's your deal? And did you get a second ass awakening or something?" Seo Jun, visibly irritated, said nothing, just stared back in cold silence. His wordless attitude only further annoyed the brown-haired guy. But Sang stepped in, diffusing the tension with calm charisma. And social finesse. Watching Sang work the situation so smoothly, Seo Jun felt a pang of envy. He thought bitterly, if that were me, I'd probably stutter like a fool and somehow make everything 10 times more awkward. But then, to his complete confusion, Sang walked right up to him and introduced himself, again like they were in some kind of heroic manga scene. Seo Jun blinked, baffled. Was this guy actually serious? Was he supposed to shake his hand, bow or something, and then, as if reading from the script of a shonen anime, Sang boldly declared that although he knew Seo Jun was currently stronger, someday he would surpass him. He even dropped the word rival, hearing that Seo Jun nearly choked on his own breath. Rival, really? Seo Jun didn't want to be anyone's rival, or worse, someone's future in-law, as he put it, feeling more done than ever. Seo Jun looked Sang dead in the eye and asked, "You seriously see me as your rival?" And when Sang confirmed it, Seo Jun lost it. He tore into Sang, demanding to know why he needed someone else as a benchmark. "Why do you need a rival to push yourself, Seo?" Jun snapped. "If you can't even focus on your own damn growth, what gives you the right to compare yourself to anyone else?" That shut Sang down fast, and he backed off in silence, wearing a crazed grin. Seo Jun turned back to the bear carcass and got to work stripping its leather. As he wrapped up, the military commander called out to him. Seo Jun immediately tensed, assuming they were about to confiscate his loot. But instead, the commander surprised him by saying the leather was rightfully his. Not only that, the commander handed him a confidential app that tracked monster activity throughout the city. Seo Jun eyed the app with suspicion, wondering if it came with hidden strings attached. The commander quickly clarified that Seo Jun eliminating monsters actually made things easier for the army and helped maintain public safety. Seo Jun shrugged and began walking off. Meanwhile, one of the commander's subordinates whispered why they hadn't tried recruiting him. The commander laughed at the suggestion, practically scoffing. "You think a guy like Sang Greenbolt, who drops monsters with a single blow, would ever take orders from us nearby?" Seo Jun overheard and burst out laughing, calling the commander smart for not pulling a dumb move like trying to recruit Seo Jun. If they'd forced it, she added, he'd have wiped the whole squad and vanished. But Seo Jun still didn't fully realize just how insanely valuable he was to this world. Using the app, he hunted down and eliminated monsters one after another. Later, perched on a rooftop, he reflected on how slow his growth had become. Erda told him that to gain real progress, he'd have to start targeting stronger monsters. Tired, Seo Jun finally returned home and crashed. But the next morning, hit him like a truck. He got a system notification. The portal to the other world had been reestablished. Everyone else in it could now return to level up except him. Thanks to some ridiculous glitch, Seo Jun was stuck on Earth. Frustrated, he asked why he couldn't go back, and she tried to play it off. Monsters on Earth had apparently powered up big time. That's why God gave humans another chance to jump into the other world and bulk up. But thanks to Seo Jun's godly skill, he is stuck behind. Hearing this, Seo Jun absolutely loses it. He yells at his frustration, bursting out like a busted dam. He even starts crying, thinking about all the epic fantasy world adventures he's missing out on. But Era, keeping her voice chill, points out that he's been solo all this time anyway, so what's the difference now? Seo Jun doesn't let it slide. What happens when his mom and dad head over to the other world? What if they ask him to meet them there? What's he supposed to say then? Scrambling to smooth things, overpitches a plan. She says he should just flex and tell his parents he's already too strong for that world. So Jun groans and mutters how much he hates that idea. Picking up on his mood, Erda changes her tone, getting serious for a moment and apologizing. She admits there's nothing she can do right now to fix his situation. Seo Jun, still fired up, asks if that means he'll never get to explore the other world. Reassures him that it's not totally impossible if he reaches the status of a higher being. He won't just access the other world. He'll get VIP entry into heaven too. The second heaven comes up, Seo Jun's brain immediately jumps to Ila. He wonders if he'll ever get to see her again. Watches him with an annoyed squint. These two are like interdimensional lovebirds, she thinks, and then it clicks. Wait, am I? They're damn Cupid. That thought alone pisses her off. She snaps at Seo-jun, telling him to train like a lunatic, become a higher being and go chase after his true love, refueled and focused. Seo-jun meets with his parents to figure out what comes next. Meanwhile, the news goes wild, covering the global madness as the portal to the other world swings. Wide open again. The military rolls out a plan to handle the flood. Half the people will head to the other world to level up, while the rest will stay behind and defend Earth. The other world has basically turned into a giant dungeon. Prime real estate for grinding and powering up. Seo-jun gulps down his hot milk, preparing himself to pitch the idea. To his parents, he suggests they should travel to the other world to bulk up their power levels. His dad dismisses him, saying it's a waste of time. He'd spent 10 years in the other world and still hadn't achieved a second-ass awakening. But Seo-jun argues back. He insists the other world is basically a playground, now with the tough monsters already cleared, making it prime time to grind safely. His dad, clearly touched by Seo-jun's persistence, flashes a warm smile. He promises Seo-jun he'll do his best and vows to check in soon. And just like that, his dad pieces out, teleporting directly to the other world. Seo-jun shakes his head, thinking, yep, 110% sure dad is being naughty in another world. Seo-jun's mom, caught off guard, is left standing there, half stunned. Later during the dinner, she praises Seo-jun for holding it down, but warns him to be cautious and not get reckless. Seo-jun brushes it off, saying he has no powers and isn't a hunter. But his mom, giving him a look, lets him know she's onto him. That masked guy tearing it up on TV. It's obviously him. After hearing this, Seo-jun is shaken. His mom, with a warm and kind smile, teases him, asking if he really thought she wouldn't recognize him, even with that weird mask on. She could tell from miles away that the masked man was. Her son, Seo-jun, is left stunned, thinking his mom's skill is some next-level legendary ability even God couldn't sense me with my stealth, but she nailed it instantly. Overcome with emotion, Seo-jun feels a lump in his throat and tears start to fall. Man, he thinks there's only one person in the whole universe who truly sees me for who I am. His mom reassures him, saying she doesn't know how he became so powerful, but he better take care of himself and avoid doing anything foolish. She adds with that classic mom tone that people can be way scarier than monsters, so he better keep his wits about him. For the first time in years, Seo-jun feels this warm, comforting feeling wash over him. Even her scolding feels different. It feels like home, but all good things must come to an end, she says. Her last goodbye gives him that mom look and heads to the other world. And just like that, Seo-jun is alone once more, gazing at the pile of dishes. Seo-jun sighs and mutters, great, now I've got to do all this boring household stuff too. While he's sulking, Era appears, telling him to snap out of it because she's heading to heaven and he's about to receive some next-level reward for all the wild things he's pulled off on Earth. The scene shifts to Seo-jun walking into his secret basement. This wasn't just any basement. It's his personal dream factory built with all the cash he earned from slaying monsters. Outfitted with top-tier equipment, it screams mastermind at work. Jun's eyes shine as he mutters, man, the things I could make here. But before he can get started, Era shows up again. Seo-jun, feeling a bit flustered, asks how she zoomed back from heaven so quickly. What floors him, though, is her appearance. She's humanized now. Seo-jun's jaw practically drops. What the heck? How do you suddenly grow like that? He blurts out the smirks and explains with a flick of her wrist that this was her real form. All along, she just shrank herself earlier, and to make things easier with the graceful move, Earth extends her hand and asks for his. Seo-jun, feeling a little awkward, gives her his hand. Her touch feels cool, yet silky smooth. Suddenly, the system dings and announces that Seo-jun's Heaven Quest Angel Agent duty is complete because Seo-jun outperformed everyone on Earth. He's granted a special reward, the Eternal Flame. Seo-jun's jaw drops. Wait, what? He exclaims. At the same moment, the furnace in his workshop glows brightly. Flames burst out, and before his eyes, they begin to take on a life of their own. He's a face and everything. Seo-jun's mind races at 100 miles an hour. What is this crazy gift? He thinks with a grin spreading across his face. Seo-jun knows this is just the start of something epic. Seo-jun is excited to see the flame and thinks about all the incredible things he can create with it. This was exactly what he wanted, however, interrupts, pointing out that Ela sent this gift to Seo-jun from heaven. Pissed Eartham complains about how Ela always gave her trouble when she was in heaven. Seo-jun, hearing Ela's name, drifts off thinking about her and saying Ela always seems to know exactly what he wants. Then Seo-jun receives a quest since the gods made a mistake and left him on Earth while everyone else went to the other world. Now the gods expect him to create dungeons on Earth. Confused and frustrated, Seo-jun quickly realizes Earth is just dumping her work on him, shouting. Seo-jun says, What kind of God makes a mistake? Leaves me alone for one. They're elves in years, and now expects me to handle their problems. This isn't fair. They sweating nervously explains that monsters on Earth have developed resistance to divine power. Seojun is the only one capable of fixing this mess. Surprised by Earth's sudden praise, Seojun finds it suspicious. Why is she complimenting me, he wonders, raising his voice again. Seojun accuses A of trying to butter him up to do some insanely hard work, though. Avoiding his gaze, stays quiet. Annoyed, Seojun demands to know what happens if he refuses. A calmly but slightly tells him that if Seojun doesn't create the dungeons, the monsters will destroy Earth and it will be his responsibility. Perfect still, frustrated, Seojun mutters about how unreliable these so-called gods are. Earth then brings out a huge pile of high-level rare materials and tools for Seojun to use. Seeing all the sparkling equipment, Seojun's jaw drops, and he almost drools. Excited, he picks up the tools. But Earth quickly points out that he's only borrowing them. They're not his. Annoyed but curious, Seojun asks how he's supposed to make dungeons then. Pulls out a blueprint and explains the process. Seojun needs to craft a magic tool that attracts monsters and converts an area into a dungeon. Seojun knows this task will be a huge pain, but the rewards sound worth it. They promises he'll get the best rewards. As Seojun begins crafting, watches him like a hawk. She's shocked by how good Seojun is at blacksmithing. For a moment, she wonders if she made a mistake recommending the Lancer class instead of blacksmithing. Maybe if Seojun had chosen blacksmithing, he could have crafted weapons powerful enough to challenge the gods. Seojun shapes the tool, carefully concentrating like a laser with sweat dripping down. He hopes not to mess it up. Watching his dedication, realizes this must be how Isla felt watching Seojun. For 1,000 years, for a brief moment, a smile creeps onto her face, but she quickly shakes it off, muttering to herself, "Nope, not catching feelings for this guy." Finally, Seojun finishes the tool, holding it up, triumphantly done. He shouts that is floored by the result. Seojun has reached the highest level of blacksmithing, earning the badass title of Creator of Legends. He stood there, holding the dungeon base, looking like he owned the place. Meanwhile, was stunned, scratching her head, wondering how Seojun had managed to finish so fast. With a smirk, Seojun teased, "What's up, Earth? Did you sneak some wine from heaven? 6 hours have already zipped by." Blinked. Bewildered, she had been so caught up watching Seojun work, she hadn't even noticed the time flying by. Reluctantly, Seojun handed her the dungeon base, to trying to act unimpressed, muttered, "Well." Seojun barely passed, but deep down, she knew he'd crushed it. She quickly added that she'd summon her fellow angels for the mana crafting hearing. Fellow angels. Seojun's heart nearly leapt out of his chest. Maybe, just maybe, Hila would show up, but with her usual knack for ruining the vibe, dropped the bad news. Hila wasn't coming then. Summoned 3 angels when they appeared. Seojun's jaw nearly hit the floor. These weren't just angels. They were drop dead, at gorgeous beings that didn't seem real. As they arrived, they stared at Seojun like he was some kind of circus act, saying they couldn't believe a lowly human had created a dungeon so quickly. Seojun's pride took a hit, and he felt a wave of irritation. But when he took a good look at their stunning faces, his anger faded a bit. As he glanced at, he realized something now that she was at full size. She was pretty damn beautiful. He shook his head, mumbling that he hadn't noticed it before, clapped her hands, snapping him out of his thoughts. Focus, Seojun have the willpower to finish the dungeon. She barked. The angels surrounded Seojun, placing their hands on him to share mana. Seojun immediately felt like he was being hit by a truck, but gritted his teeth, staying focused on crafting the dungeon. The white-haired angel watched clearly, impressed, saying she couldn't believe a human could handle their mana. The black-haired angel, on the other hand, looked ticked off, grumbling that his ego was hurting seeing Seojun do so well. Meanwhile, the green-haired angel seemed to find Seojun's effort fascinating. A bright light burst out, signaling the completion of the dungeon. The angels were blown away, marveling at how Seojun had nailed it on his first try. What's more, the dungeon had alpha and beta options, rare features that usually didn't show up this earlier. They explained that these options were super rare and added even more power to the dungeon. The angels begrudgingly praised Seojun, clearly impressed despite their initial doubts. Seojun, trying not to look too smug, joined them in setting up the dungeon. They moved to a nearby mountain where tossed the dungeon core into the air. Seojun tilted his head, confused, as it suddenly vanished. Moments later, the ground began to rumble, and Seojun spotted monsters heading straight for the dungeon. Watching the creatures charge toward their doom, Seojun couldn't help but chuckle. Man, these poor guys have no clue what's waiting for them. Thinking about how God had bailed on Earth for thousands of years, Seojun clenched his fists. He wasn't about to sit around whining. Instead, he was ready to level up his game with a serious face, clenching his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. Seo Jun swore to himself he would get stronger, so strong that even God wouldn't be able to control him. This wasn't for anyone else, not for praise, not for recognition. It was for one thing, and one thing only, to claim his own freedom. The next day, data is reported that dungeons have appeared in various parts of the world, attracting monsters. Seo Jun wonders how his parents are doing. Earth praises Seo Jun's hard work, but Seo Jun, shrugging off the compliment, claims he needs to make more dungeons and wonders. Why the angels have already left, though, explains that the angels need to recharge their mana and return to heaven. Shujin then mentions that there are other angels like Ila, tells him that Ila is busy working because of him and won't be able to see him for a while later. Seo Jun returns to his workshop and notices the materials he's gathered. She offers to reward Seo Jun for his dedication with a wave of her hand. She quickly dries and sterilizes the monster leathers. Seo Jun grins, excited that he can now craft boots and gloves after all. Sometimes Seo Jun successfully makes a set of leather gloves and boots. Next, he begins crafting armor from bear leather. Watches him with a gentle smile, enjoying how Seo Jun throws himself into his crafting with such passion. A day passes and Seo Jun finishes the bear armor. However, he doesn't stop there. Reinforces the armor using monster bones, resulting in armor with superior quality and a unique added feature. Spikes that shoot out like a porcupine recalls the hidden mantis blade, and asks why Seo Jun is making such unusual gear. Seo Jun, with a confident smirk, says that it's every man's dream. Rolls her eyes and calls his reasoning nonsense. Spotting leftover monster bones, Seo Jun gets another idea. He crafts a butchering knife from the bones and even fashions a mask from a skull. Seo Jun equips the mask, gloves, boots, and armor, is shocked at how the mask has made Seo Jun's presence even weaker than before, as if he's vanished into thin air. As then a loud explosion sounds in the distance. A monster appears and can't believe it hasn't been caught in a dungeon yet. How is that even possible? She mutters in disbelief. Suddenly they hear another loud explosion. A monster shows up again. Erta still can't believe it hasn't been trapped yet. Seo Jun, smirking, hopes it isn't stronger than the brown bear. He mutters that if it is, he'll have to craft a new set of armor. Hearing this, Era loses it and shouts, "Is Seo Jun seriously worried about making new armor instead of fighting a beast that can level a city?" Shujin shrugs her off, pulls out his spear and adjusts it. The weapon suddenly gains a clear boost in attack. Power. Seo Jun grins and boldly asks if he can keep the heavenly tools, but shuts him down with a firm no. They head toward the chaos, where a massive leopard is wreaking havoc. The military is completely outmatched. Seo Jun spots a few awakened ones nearby, but they're clearly out of their league. Most of the top fighters are off in the other world, hanging out with elves without hesitation. Seo Jun straps on his mask and charges into action. Shouts, warning this leopard is stronger than the bear. A tank fires at the leopard, but the shot bounces off like nothing happened. The angry leopard grabs the tank and tries to chomp it like a snack. Seo Jun, never missing a chance, jumps in and spears the leopard right in the eye, scoring a clean critical hit. The watching crowd erupts, relieve their one. And only hero Sangani Bolt didn't leave for the other world. The furious leopard hurls the tank aside, but Seo Jun stays right on its tail with skill. He slashes open the tank and pulls out two trapped soldiers. They collapse to the ground, gasping and gratefully calling Seo Jun their hero. Suddenly, as Seo Jun freezes, sensing danger, he yells at the soldiers to get out of there. The leopard locks its wild gaze on Seo Jun, the panic saying, "It's got you now." But Seo Jun, wearing his trademark cocky grin, replies, "Relax, Seo Jun's got this." He tightens his grip on the spear, ready to fight the military, and awakened fighters focus their attacks on the leopard. While it's distracted, suddenly a bolt of lightning strikes the leopard's injured eye. A helicopter lands, and a stunningly beautiful woman steps out. The crowd can't believe the Empress is such a beauty. The leopard charges at Seo Jun, but he dodges by leaping into the air, taking advantage. The leopard aims to strike him midair. The crowd gasps in terror, convinced he might be dead. But shockingly, Seo Jun curls up midair like a porcupine, landing without a scratch. Proud Seo Jun smirks, but quickly remarks how ridiculous he looks. She sarcastically says his pose is exactly the kind Ila would mock. Seo Jun grumbles, not wanting to imagine Ila seeing him like that. Meanwhile, the monster flailed wildly and rammed its head into a building for a powerful headbutt. Seo Jun managed to dodge just in time. He retaliated, swiftly leaping onto the leopard with his spiked boots and landing a critical hit with his spear. Relentlessly, he kept attacking, while others targeted the leopard's legs. Suddenly, the warned "hurry that thing's" evolving into Class 3. Tentacles sprouted from the wounded eye, confirming the mutation was underway. Another bolt of lightning struck, revealing the Empress watching from above. Seo Jun hacked at the regenerating tentacles, but they kept coming back. The Empress offered to buff him, and though surprised he accepted, she leapt gracefully from the helicopter and landed in front of him. Her calm voice carried authority as she said, My life is in your hands now. With her powers, Seo Jun's stats surged by 50%, and he gained a lightning buff. She warned him the buff side effect was a 50% drop in stats once it ended, now powered up. Seo Jun attacked the leopard with a mix of critical and lightning strikes. The Empress urged him to finish quickly, hinting the military might launch missiles otherwise worried. About his nearby workshop, Shujun pressed his full force with one final devastating blow. The leopard fell, earning Seo Jun experience points, and a level up. Earth praised Seo Jun, but his satisfaction soured when he saw the leopard's leather was ruined, crushing his hopes of crafting armor from it, though. Sarcastically asked, is that really more important? Seo noticed the military struggling to dismantle the corpse and offered to help on the condition they discuss how to split the spoils. The Emperor suggested a 60-20-20, split 60% to Seo 20% to the military, and 20% to the other hunters, reluctantly. The military agreed, lifting Seo Jun's mood. Climbing onto the corpse, Seo Jun retrieved a mana stone, which the Emperor said was a fair reward for all his work. But then grumbles rose from the hunters and some military personnel, complaining the mana stone should be shared since everyone risked their lives. Scoffed. Typical lowly beings quick to whine and accuse after being saved. Annoyed, Seo Jun reluctantly agreed to give up the mana stoner one, disappointed, asking why he was backing down. But Seo Jun, with a sly grin, shared his plan. He remembered his mother's advice. If words don't solve a problem, there's always one final answer. Your fist. She had flexed her Sigma Asian mom muscles, leaving Seo Jun in awe. Seo Jun dramatically threw the mana stone back into the leopard's corpse and shouted fiercely, "Take it, but only if you beat me for it. And next time another monster shows up, I'll wait until you're all dead before I move. That way no one will complain, since you'll all be in heaven." Hearing this, the others quickly stepped back, muttering that Seo Jun should keep the mana stone. The Empress requested her share of the dismantling, promising to pay Seo Jun extra for his effort later. She called for a car to transport the materials, flaunting her wealth. Seo Jun, however, felt a surge of disgust as the very hunters who had accused him earlier now shamelessly begged for his help. Butchering the leopard, he rolled his eyes in pure annoyance, barely holding back a gag. Then Seo Jun offered to help dismantle the leopard, but only for a hefty payment. The others grumbled and complained, but realizing they had no choice, reluctantly agreed to Seo Jun's terms. Chaos erupted soon after as everyone fought over the loot, leaving Seo Jun completely uninterested. With an exasperated sigh, he tried to slip away quietly, avoiding the unnecessary drama. The Empress, however, stopped him in his tracks. She praised his stealth skill, calling it extraordinary, and suggested forming a party with him. Seo Jun flatly declined, making it clear he works better alone. Undeterred, she smirked, saying she planned to stay on Earth because she wasn't weak enough to run off to the other world to train. With a sly grin, she handed him her business card and walked away. Seo Jun glanced at the name Kong Mai on the card and thought it was refreshing that she wasn't overly persistent as he walked away with a noticed movement in the leopard's carcass, but Seo Jun brushed it off, muttering, "Not my problem." Later, Seo Jun headfirst into crafting mode, creating more traps of destruction. Suddenly, Earth sensed something ominous, a tertiary class monster forming on Earth. Panic crept into her voice as she asked what could possibly be happening. Seo Jun, unfazed, casually asks, "Why not? Just check with God." Earth shoots him an annoyed look, scolding his laid-back attitude and reminding him that Earth is genuinely in peril. The monster's evolution is accelerating dangerously. Threatening the balance, Seo Jun shrugs and bluntly says, "Worrying won't fix anything." While wondering aloud how other nations are handling the crisis, they explains that this rapid evolution is happening only in Korea, which immediately makes Seo Jun suspect that his traps, commonly called dungeons, might be the cause, or is stunned, realizing just how effective Seo Jun's traps are in pushing monsters to evolve quickly. In other words, monsters evolve within dungeons through crossbreeding. Outside dungeons, they grow by feeding on humans. But monsters caught inside dungeons experience stunted growth. Seo Jun smirks proudly at the power of his traps fueled by new motivation. He decides to craft even more traps. Erda watches with admiration, impressed by how much Seo Jun genuinely enjoys creating and leveling up. Reflecting on his 1,000 years of isolation, she sees he craves fresh experiences. To her own surprise, she finds herself sympathizing with him. A mere mortal. What surprises her even more is that she doesn't dislike the feeling, trying to shake off the odd emotion they encourages Seo Jun to keep getting stronger and gaining experience. Seo Jun confidently promises he will his resolve. Firm that night, the angels return to help finish more traps before leaving to create dungeons. Seo Jun hopes his traps are doing their job and reassures him not to worry. Seo Jun thanks her, which leaves the confused by his unexpected gratitude. My guy's going to have a whole harem of angels. She thinks later that evening, while showering, Seo Jun notices something odd. Has his little PP grown, chuckling to himself. He asks Amoy about it, flexing in the mirror. It confirms it's definitely bigger. But Seo Jun ever the tease jokes about making it. Even larger rolls her eyes in irritation, saying his antics annoy a higher being like her. She munches on a cookie as she watches TV, but Seo Jun, with playful eyes sparkling, keeps flexing and pestering her about his muscles. Eventually, it's too much for her. She blushes, grabs her potato chips and throws them at him, but deep down, Earth finds herself enjoying this new feeling and secretly wants to spend more time with Seo Jun. Before she realizes it, she's smiling, feeling good, simply staying by his side inside her head. Ila's voice teases her, isn't Jun? Amazing, this immediately annoys her again, and she starts scolding Seo Jun, even though he's already sleeping like a child, while Earth yells, Seo Jun dreams of. Ila the next morning, Seo Jun wakes up and discovers that his rest skill has reached max level. That was stunned and exclaims that it's an SS rank skill. She asks how he managed to achieve such a feat. Seo Jun, with a smug grin, explains that he researched how to sleep comfortably for a millennium. They can't believe what she's hearing. She's envious, yet amazed, dismissing it as a skill merely for resting well. Yeojun, however, senses there's more to it, adjusting her glasses. Earth begins to explain skill evolution. She elaborates that skill. Evolution is an achievement that opens new paths to power. In simpler terms, once a skill evolves, it becomes overpowered. Earth points out that Seojun currently has Taijutsu, Spear Arts, Rest, and Stealth, all ready for evolution. However, she warns him that evolving Taijutsu and Spear Arts will be extremely difficult. Due to strict requirements, while his stealth skill, being passive, can't be evolved, she then encourages Seojun to check the rest skills requirements. Seojun takes a look and freezes to evolve it. He needs 500 monster hearts and 500 L of troll blood. Seeing this, Seojun complains loudly. This is almost impossible to do, the smirks, and tells Seojun to check the requirements for his other skills. Reluctantly, he does so, only to find that evolving his Taijutsu and Spear Arts requires killing 500 Class 3 monsters all in one shot. On top of that, he must also defeat a Class 4 monster. Are you kidding me, Seo? Jun shouts, his soul practically leaving his body then. Trying not to laugh, calmly explains that while his other skills might seem ridiculous now, their future potential is godly, and they'll be the easiest to upgrade compared to the rest. The however begins to worry about Jun's leveling. Speed, he's growing slower, and he still doesn't have mana. The only reason Seojun is so overpowered is because of his martial arts. She warns that if he doesn't evolve quickly, other humans could surpass him. But then a chilling thought crosses Earth's mind. If Seojun ever masters mana, he might become a being capable of dominating all creators of the Ashik records. The very idea sends a shiver down her spine, yet it also fills her with admiration. From now on, all Earth can do is observe him, to witness his journey, his growth, and secretly to savor every moment of it. Bishop Miyujo Jun asks Earth where he can locate those Class 3 monsters. The wild, casually munching on fried snakes, explains that those monsters will only emerge on Earth once mana is activated. Just then, the news on TV reports that the Leopard's corpse has vanished, along with the people who were dividing the loot. The Class 2 Leopard also disappeared with the people who were dismantling it. Some speculate that dungeon may have swallowed them whole, however. Seojun suspects there might be another creature involved. Earth is 99% certain that the leopard was dead. She admits there's a 0.1% chance that the leopard was pregnant. Seo Jun briefly recalls seeing a black figure on the screen and regrets not finishing the butchering, however quickly. Reminds him it was the greedy people's fault. The people got killed and are now relaxing in the monster's stomach, all because of their own greed, he says, clearly unimpressed. But Seo Jun still feels responsible. A reaction didn't. Expects she can't understand why Seo Jun is affected by this. They realize the leopard must have acted erratically to conceal its baby. Feels guilty for not considering the possibilities, especially since the baby inherited a stealth skill. Nobody noticed it hiding. The people had spent too much time arguing, giving the baby enough time to be born, and later attack those nearby. And if you wonder what's going to happen next, like the video and see you in the next